Okay, well, it's 6 o'clock. I'd like to go ahead and call this meeting to order. This is a work session meeting of the Manitou Springs City Council for December the 12th, 2023. I'll go ahead and do the roll call, and I'll observe first that Michelle Weatherholt is excused this evening. So Councillor Chandler,
Present.
Councillor Shada, Councillor Wolf, Councillor Johnson.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Fortune,
Present.
and the mayor is also present. Okay, so we simply have one discussion item tonight. That's discussion regarding potential intergovernmental agreement for Mountain Metro. And I think some of that's going to involve the fallout from the grant application. So let's see, Roy, would you like to make some opening comments?
Sure. First, to go ahead, if Jacob Matson and Juan Alvarez want to come sit up here, that's great. Basically, I think council may know that we did not get the grant money for the 36. So we are still presenting because it was requested by council that we come back and bring some ideas too of maybe changes of the shuttle routes. Also, if you want to look at what it would cost for a year for 36, that's going to be presented as well. I do want to say we have worked on this for several months, and probably the best collaboration from Colorado Springs and Manitou Springs we ever had since I've been working with them since 2019. So very good group, really reaching out, trying to find solutions, and we appreciate that. So I'll go ahead and let Juana and Jacob start the presentation.
Juan Alvarez, Mobility and Parking Director.
Good evening, Council. My name is Jacob Matson. I am the Planning Supervisor with Mountain Metro Transit. I'll kind of be walking you through this presentation here and kind of going over some of the items that we discussed with Roy and his staff in terms of how we can, what potential changes we can see with the Route 36 for your consideration. So for the next slide, yep. So I'll start with the Route 33. Not going to spend too much time on this. Just wanted to make sure you guys kind of had a little background. 2 routes in Manitou Springs, or 3 if you include our Route 3. We have the Route 33 and the Route 36. Route 33 is our, what we would kind of refer to as the Manitou Incline Shuttle. So Manitou Incline Shuttle runs year round. That is a 20-minute service, except during its peak season, which is our summer season. On the weekends, it runs at a 10-minute frequency on Saturdays and Sundays. And then one of the things we're wanting to kind of let you guys know is with the Route 33 is we are not looking to do any changes the next year. We had discussions about what that could look like, but decided to stick with the current service model, which is traditionally kind of a very, very late April. I have May up there, but very late April, but really it's May through September that service operates. I have included a map up here as well. What you're looking at here is the westbound going from Old Man's Trail up to the incline. Once again, this is just more of an FYI, so you kind of get a visual on it. And that shows up there, it's 10-minute frequency. Going back eastbound, similar map, 10 minutes during the summer peak season, and then 20 minutes during the non-peak season. So really the focus what we're looking to talk about is the Route 36, and working with Roy and his team kind of came up with a couple different options based on kind of some of the community feedback and kind of what we were hearing from your local staff here. And I guess before I jump into that, the big item that we're kind of looking at navigating is the idea of running Route 36 to the Safeway at 32nd in Colorado. Sounds like there's a community interest to provide service to that location. So in working with Roy and his team, we kind of determined or developed a couple of different service options that we want to present for your consideration here. So this right here, this is currently how the service operates. So as the 36 currently operates, it starts at Fields Parks, works its way down Manitou Ave and goes up to the Serpentine Roundabout, and then does the return trip. Go to the next slide. And next one. So with looking at going to the Safeway off of 32nd, we developed essentially two options for that. The first option, actually, I'll jump into that one next. It's important to note that as we kind of looked at this, we're not looking at any changes in the number of revenue service hours. So we're still looking to run the same number of revenue service hours and making no changes there. We do have a picture up here of a cutaway. I know we've kind of talked back and forth about what Route 36 could benefit from in terms of a cutaway. One of the things we're really important to consider with that is having the bicycle rack. So specifically looking at that option, if we were to put the cutaway on the Route 36 as a permanent solution, we would be looking to include the bike rack on that as well, so that our folks that are using bicycles are also able to use the bus itself. One thing to consider though, with our current service as it operates, the Route 36 is on 20-minute service. The options I'm going to show you have different levels of frequency for the service because the route is going longer. So go to the next slide. So option one, once again, this is how the service currently operates. Just want to kind of just show that again. What we have right here is the current service. So this is the westbound heading out to Serpentine. Go to the next slide. And then eastbound coming back the other way. And it's important to note, currently, we do not operate service out to the Safeway. So the second option in the group, or the first option for a change, is this one that would take the route to 30-minute frequency. It would provide service to the Safeway. And it's important to note, if you're looking at that map up there, the red lines are kind of showing what the current 36 is, where it currently goes. So that's where it would no longer go on the westbound trip for this one right here, but it would provide that service to the Safeway at a 30-minute frequency. Next slide. And then coming back eastbound, once again, those red lines are showing you what would be reduced from the service. It's important to note that this would impact two stops. One is the Schmishny lot on the west end of the route, and then the Fields Park stop, or El Paso and Becker stop on the east end of the route. But it would continue to serve all the way along to the Safeway there, and the current stops that exist along that stretch. Next slide. And then option 3 is giving a little more service, going into a few more areas, but it does increase the frequency, or decrease the frequency really when you look at it, to 40 minutes. So it's the original frequency being 20, now going to 40. With this option on the westbound, we would service Old Man's Trail, which the Route 36 currently does not service. This would create connections between the Route 36, the Route 3, and the 33 at one unified location. But once again, much like the other option, option 2, it would not service the Schmishny lot parking, or the bus stop there. And then coming back the other way, we would continue to serve Fields Park on the return trip where it currently goes through, and also along to the Safeway. And I'll also throw this out there because I know Roy and I had worked on this. When it comes to some of the layover locations, we are looking at the potential for a west side layover. If we are looking at the Fields, looking to continue to service Fields Park, and so if we go back and look at option 1, once again, that's what we're currently doing. We would look to lay the bus over at the Schmishny lot under what we currently operate. If we were to go to the Safeway option, and under options 2 and 3 continue to Safeway, the longer layover would be at the Safeway, no longer laying over at the El Paso Beckers or the Fields Park stop. So those are the kind of the 3 options. I'm going to dive into a couple other options that you could kind of go with, whether or not you choose 1, 2, or 3. One of the things that has been discussed in the past is a bus pass option. So under this idea, Manitou Springs could purchase bus passes for its citizens. This would be good for use on any of our services. A regular bus pass is $63, whereas our specialized for the senior and disabled and youth would come in at $31 for a monthly pass. And that we did include the link to our bus passes, and if you want to take a deeper dive at that, but those are our 2 31-day monthly passes. And yeah, let's go to the next slide. So reiterating the 3 options kind of as a side-by-side along with the bus pass option you kind of see up here in the presentation, kind of the 2 options as a side-by-side. Once again, looking at 20, 30, and 40-minute frequencies as kind of what comes out of those different options for service. And so right here, this was presented, I believe, at the last council meeting in terms of the cost of each of the service options. I discussed the idea of using a cutaway. There are some cost savings from the cutaway. You're looking, I think that'd be the next slide, but I'll stay here for the moment. So what you're seeing here are the proposed rates for the upcoming 2024 agreement. And you can kind of see the difference between the cutaway versus the large bus. And this is on what's called a revenue service hour, kind of where these numbers come from, but you're looking at $11 per revenue service hour. And the next slide will go over what that kind of entails. But this is a breakdown of what our costs are for the service, as well as the previous IGA rates and the current IGA. I said previous, but it is the current one for the 2023. We're looking at $83 is what's in that rate. And you're looking at between 86 and 97, depending on cutaway versus a full-size bus. Next slide. And so this kind of breaks down the cost and potential cost. So as was iterated earlier, the grant we went for, we were not successful in getting, but I thought it was important to include this and kind of look at what that could look like in the future. This is based on the 2024. Obviously, if we went for a grant at a later time, prices change, those numbers change, but this gives you a good idea of where it's at standing today. The idea was to go for, and if we had gotten this grant, to offer potential year-round service on the Route 36 using that grant as a 50-50 match. The cost to Manitou Springs is on the far right-hand side of that. And you can see from the MMOF, the year-round is the bottom two, cutaway and bus. We did break that out. The year-round is that lower part. You can kind of see what that cost would be on the Manitou further portion. And then I'd also allude or kind of point out that there is that difference in the cost between the cutaways versus the full-size buses. And with that, kind of sped through this. I hope that made sense. And if there's any discussion or questions you may have, I'm here to answer.
Council questions, comments? Judith?
Yeah, I have a number of thoughts. Thank you for being here. This is a really great discussion. So since we met last time, some things have changed, and I really tried to factor these changes into my thoughts about making this 36 bus as effective as it can be. I did an informal survey of many residents since the packet came out, asking them, would you wait 30 to 40 minutes for a bus? The answer was no. That also came up last night at our community meeting on the new tram. So the things that have changed since you were here last is we did purchase and now have, and probably will start using in the summer, the 2 E-trams. And we also, this city council last year approved the purchase of 2 properties, the Chase Bank and the Dillon Hotel, that are possibly to be used in the mobility and parking portfolio. I'd like to see the 36 shuttle run year round. I want it to be free to residents. I think it's wonderful that we're talking about the possibility of purchasing and making available bus passes to our residents. I would like to see the 36 shuttle extended to Columbia. I'm not sure I want it to go to Safeway, but I think if we ask too many things of this route, I think it might fail if it's too long. And the reason why I say that is we do have the number 3 shuttle that does go to Safeway. And if we were to provide free passes to those people that needed that bus to get to Safeway, we do have that as another means to get to the grocery store. I would like to see the 36 service the entire URA. So Columbia, El Paso, Columbia, and pick up riders to the Cog and Incline at the Dillon, going into town at the Chase Bank. I'm thinking that we may not have to pull that 36 shuttle off into Old Man's Trail, but we can actually just have it pull in and let people off there. That's just a food for discussion, so that it might decrease the time instead of, taking it right on Old Man's Trail and then left on El Paso and then right on Manitou, just pull into that Chase Bank and let people off there. I think there's a few other council members that have some ideas on what the rest of that 36 shuttle route might look like, so we can stay with the larger bus but fill it up And so I'll leave it at that. I'd like to hear what other council members have to say. I have a few more notes, but I also would like to hear their input first. So thank you.
Council? John?
Yeah, my modest proposal is that we leave Route 3 as it is, except with one caveat. I'd like to know the possibility from Mountain Metro that Route 3 would be free to anybody who would board between 31st Street and Hiawatha Gardens, as to whether you guys could handle the accounting, so to speak, as to what that would be, and maybe, you know, bill our transit entity for those uses, okay, in that area. To me, I think that would be a good compromise to try and see whether there would be any interest in whether we could increase the ridership in that window from essentially Manitou to 31st Street down to Safeway. The second thing, I'm in concurrence with Judith on Route 36. I'd like to see it run year round. I'm certainly in agreement with it running all the way down to Columbia, but I have one major modification. I'd like the endpoint to be at the cog and the incline. I really think that 36 needs to have some sort of some resuscitation in terms of some ridership. And I think by pinning it into that and running that year round there, and you'll see in a moment what my suggestion on Route 33 is, okay, is that I think that would really up the ridership. It would do all the things that I think Judith said, which is it would pin something on the east end of Manitou. It would service the URA. It'd service our new Dillon parking lot. It'd still hit Hiawatha. And it would connect into essentially, you know, the most popular endpoint destination we have in town. Okay. And I think that's pretty consistent that we have demand up Ruxton for that. And then my third proposal is that Route 33 would move to a seasonal service. And it would continue to service from kind of like what 36 did, would run in 36's time frame from Hiawatha to the cog and the incline, and it would basically be there to kind of pick up that upswing in demand that we see, you know, in those core summer months. And then I would sort of kind of be open to, you know, what kind of, you know, equipment, you know, would be running on 36 and 33, depending upon maybe what time of year and whatnot. That maybe needs to be flexible, and maybe that needs to be managed, you know, on a month-to-month basis or something like that, you know, by you folks that are noticing what demand is and what kind of equipment, you know, would need to be on those routes. And then sort of kind of what Judith is suggesting is that on 36, when it gets down to Columbia, it would loop around after that new bridge at the Bicycle Resort is opened, okay, and come back to Becker's and then rejoin the avenue. Then sort of kind of the fourth goal that I have in my proposals is that this really gets rid of the bus traffic off of El Paso. I find, as somebody who spent most of my youth and my college days and my post-college years riding public transit, I find it very disconcerting that eastbound and westbound routes of buses are on two different streets that are blocks apart and oftentimes very kind of isolated to kind of get between them. Okay. I think that, you know, successful bus routes, you know, stick to their streets coming and going, you know what I mean? And don't loop around as kind of like the 33 does, Okay, right now, and I think the 3 does as well, where it's back there on El Paso Boulevard from Old Man's Trail all the way to Garden of Gods Drive there. And so that would be the 4th component that my proposal would do, was that we would cease that, using that corridor of El Paso Boulevard for eastbound routing of whether it be 36 or 3. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Other counselors? Thoughts? Okay, well, let's see. Well, hang on, Judith. Natalie, Julie, Nancy, you haven't had a chance to speak yet, so. Okay. Did you-
I just had a quick question. What is
Okay.
the capacity of the, what do you call it, the cutout? How many passengers?
Cutaway.
Oh, cutaway.
Yeah.
How many passengers will fit?
Depends on the build of the bus, but seated passengers, you're typically looking between 10 and 12. I've seen as much as 14, but typically 10 to 12, depending on the make of the bus.
And what's the capacity of the larger buses that we use?
You're typically seeing the upper 20s and low 30s for seated capacity. And once again, matters on the make and model of the bus.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. Judith?
Thank you, Mayor. So I think it's really important for council to look at what is the big picture end goal. And one of the primary reasons for purchasing the Dillon was to create a remote lot on the east end of town so that folks coming in to go to the COG or the incline could park there. And so that really brings the 36 shuttle into, more importance here. If I'm certainly open to entertaining the idea of the 36 going to the COG. My plan was to agree that we should just leave the 33 shuttles as is right now, but if the 36 bus, and I was hoping that one of these buses could be an e-bus, and we've talked about that before, but that's another just a conversation. If it went from the COG, it would go from the COG to the roundabout, go to Manitou. I'd still want it to take a left at the swimming pool at Garden Lane and at least hit that portion of El Paso, Fields Park. The reason why the 36 shuttle, I think, should go to Columbia is there's an apartment complex, there's a trailer park, and there's the Buffalo Lodge there. And if we were to increase it to Columbia, but not go to Safeway at this point, then the 36 shuttle would also service the entire URA. And I'm going to throw out the idea that because it would service the entire URA and the Dillon parking lot, that it might be appropriate to have a discussion with the Urban Renewal Authority Board on the URA funding the portion of the first year-round service of the 36 shuttle. So that's just an idea of a funding source as well. But I'm really open to that idea. And then perhaps once we have an idea of what the 33 and the 36 shuttles routes look like, then we can take a look at how our trams will fit in and pick up the pieces. One of our trams is going to be dedicated to the downtown core, I know, but then there's another shuttle that we can get creative about after we have cemented and agreed upon these two routes. So I also think the allowing free ridership from 31st to Hiawatha Gardens is an interesting idea if it's not burdening the bus driver with having, another thing to do in addition to driving the bus. I don't know how that would work, but I think it's a really interesting idea. Thank you.
Roy?
Yeah, Jacob, I have a question about if the bus ran from Columbia to the COG and incline, what would be the turnaround? Because it seems longer maybe than to Schmitzny, and that was already 40 minutes.
So right now, the 40-minute option would have it turning at the Ruxton roundabout. And then doing the other couple turns in there. I mean, just kind of eyeballing it. It's probably going to stay in a similar frequency. I'd have to really take a look at that to see what that looks like, the turnaround.
Okay,
It would, I mean, the parking lot at the COG is where the 33 turns around. So we'd have to take a look at that. Would have to see something that would require a little further look to determine timing on the
Okay.
turnaround. But it would probably be a
40
higher
40
frequen-
minutes
or a
from-
lower frequency. Yeah.
Yep.
Natalie?
Okay, so I'm also interested in the free ridership from 31st into Manitou. I think that seems like a more interesting option than residents only kind of situation. So I'm intrigued by that. I also think we need to focus on hitting some of those key locations like the mobile home park, the Garden of the Gods campground, Buffalo Lodge. And so I think that's important. I'm intrigued by this 36 piece, but again, looking at that 40 minutes, I think we have to be realistic. And then just to confirm, this would go into effect in March?
It'd be very late April.
Okay, late
Yeah,
April,
yeah.
okay. Yeah, I guess based on what's been said, and also just the idea too, which I think these are covered, but that idea of going past Sheldon's and Manitou Auto so you can drop off your car and hop on a bus to get home, some of those things. So just making sure that some of those places where people will need to hop on a bus, we're just covering that. And I think we have, but I just wanted to mention that.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I've got a few questions, and I guess it would help if we could go to slide 18 of the presentation. That's the table with the various service types versus costs and so forth. Okay, so and I'm looking at the sheet, one of the slides that came from the September 5th presentation with Mountain Metro, and so as I'm looking at this, okay, and let's take, for instance, there at the top, Route 36 peak season with the cutaway with the small bus, and okay, so the number jives with what I had from September the 5th, but then let's see Route 36 year-round small bus, and of course the September 5th it was hypothetical based on getting a grant, and it looked like at that time the grant would cover $154,861, and Manitou would pay the same amount for a total of $309,722. Looking at the table in tonight's packet, we're looking at that same number. That would be the third row down, Route 36 year-round cutaway, 154. So I guess my question is Mountain Metro eating $154,000 on that, or am I misunderstanding something?
The other half is picked up by an MMOF grant.
I'm sorry. Okay.
It'd be picked up by a grant. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So,
Yeah.
okay. I didn't know how much hardship we might be asking you guys to do.
Yeah. The current agreement is that Manitou Springs pays for the 36.
That's right. Okay. Right. Okay. Well, just going through and doing the math on just the numbers of the shown in tonight's packet, for instance, taking roughly $150,000 because we got different options, but 150 is about 150,000 is a fair. It's in the neighborhood there, and looking at the ridership, I'm just June, July, and August have significantly higher ridership than the other 2 months. It just ran for 5 months, but the shoulders on that 5-month season are I think a little over 2,087 riders on the average for those 2 months. The monthly average for all 5 months, 3,093. So, I mean, you just do some basic math, and I took the small monthly average for April and September, used that for 9 months, and then I took the summer season, added it in. And at $150,000, it looks to me like it's costing close to $5 per ride. I mean, so whether the rider is paying the normal fee, which is not much, or they're riding free, it's costing the city of Manitou and maybe to some extent Mountain Metro close to $5 a ride. That seems to me like an expensive way to deliver a service. For $150,000, we should be able to squeeze out as much value as possible. And so, costs are what they are. If we don't have a lot of ridership to justify doing it, I guess my inclination is to look pretty carefully at the 36. I'm wondering if we couldn't use the new trams that we have to satisfy our need and not even use the 36, use that $150,000 for other transportation, such as, I mean, we've got the Dillon parking lot that we want to do something with. So I'm thinking of putting the money somewhere else, and I appreciate the work you've done on it, but it's, you've got so many buses and you've got people all over the region that you need to move. So, let's think about doing things the most economical way that we can. And it's a little bit different perspective, I know, than what's been voiced by some of the other counselors up here. Judith?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to respond to that, and I thoroughly agree with you, which is one of the reasons why we're trying to think outside of the box to make the 36 shuttle really valuable. Several things. One, 40 to 50% of incline reservations are no-shows. And my vision for the future of Manitou is to work with the COG and the incline to encourage, when they get their ticket, that it's tied to a prepaid parking space. And so, because we're losing quite a bit of potential parking revenue right there when someone makes an incline reservation and then doesn't show up. So by having the 36 shuttle go to Columbia, I love Natalie's comment about dropping your car off at Sheldon's, those kinds of things, picking up more people in that area. A lot of our residents go to the Buffalo Lodge. It's a very popular cycling resort area. And I think if we picked up more of the camping population, but the biggest thing to me is if we could utilize the 36 to pick up riders at the Dillon who have a pre-reserved parking spot, that would be a really good boon to the COG and the incline people, because it would be so easy. You drive to the Dillon, you have a paid parking spot, the 36 shuttle picks you up. I like Councilor Shada's idea of that, tying the 36 to a popular destination would increase the ridership, I would think, and still service the residents in the east end of town. So, but I do agree that if we don't do something to change the 36 route, I'm afraid it's going to go away. And with the purchase of these two trams, I know that one tram was going to be dedicated to the downtown area, but the other tram was really supposed to be, something that we could be creative in offering more residents access to micromobility and bus, riding a bus. So I want to make sure that our bus routes, including our new trams, are not just devoted to picking up tourists. I wanted those trams to be used also for people who live here. So that said, I think that we do need to take a look at the 36 and making it much more, the ridership has to go way up. I agree. So those are some thoughts I have. And I still think that we should have a conversation with the URA, because if they can help monetize the 36 shuttle being year round, I think that that's a conversation that is worth having.
Thank you. Julie?
I wanted to comment on your comment, Mayor, that it's wasteful to spend money on a bus that people aren't using. It infuriates me when I see an empty bus driving all the way down, for example, to Serpentine. Nobody goes down there. There's nothing down there. But I like to think of this as a pilot project, just an experiment, perhaps a somewhat expensive experiment, but to see if in fact we can use this as a strategy to really reduce the congestion in the downtown area during our peak months, while also getting fewer cars on the road and more people using the bus during the year. And with the routes being changed, as has been suggested, to go all the way down to Columbia, I think is a creative idea and could potentially service lots of people living right at that corner there at Columbia and Manitou Ave at the bridge. So I appreciate your concern to want to be fiscally responsible, but this might be a really wonderful outcome, and I think it's worth an experiment.
Thank you. It seems to me like $5 a person for a bus ride is, that's a lot for a government to subsidize. I mean, if we're actually moving people and solving a problem, that's great. No, and I get that, Julie. And I also think that like in the summer when we have congestion problems, there's an uncalculated value in reducing that congestion. That's something we can't put a dollar sign on, but I guess you could have an economist come and guess at this and guess at that. But I mean, overall, the quality of life, I think anybody could pretty quickly decide that that's better, reducing congestion. And if we can move people around and make it an easy experience for them, there's, I think, tremendous value in that. Having a bus running year round that's only hauling a few people, I question that. Even if we had, I don't think this would work in the bus schedule if they ran just a few times a day and people could plan their schedule around it. Would they? I don't know. And I went back and I looked at the survey, and I mean, almost everybody, 6% of the Manitou's population won't wait more than 5 minutes for a bus. That's what they say. And then there's, I think, about 40% are more reasonable. They'll wait 10 to 15 minutes, something like that. But then it starts to peter off. Would people use it? I mean, I also wonder if we kind of experiment using the trams, if that wouldn't be a fairly flexible way. I think one of the problems that Mountain Metro has is they have to plan 6 months ahead, and I think part of that maybe is driven by federal programs. So, you're to some extent your hands are tied, and we very much appreciate what you've done with us. But for us to be flexible and say we need to move people because we're having a wine festival or the beer festival or whatever, or high school graduation or something, the trams give us, I think, that flexibility, that ability to maneuver quickly. So I see that as a compliment with Mountain Metro doing the predictable day-to-day heavy lifting, and with, to me, routes 3 and 33, the Colorado Springs to Manitou and then the incline, are two success stories. I mean, if you come down on a summer afternoon and down at the park and you just see people packing onto that incline bus, you can see why it runs every 10 minutes, during the sun on the weekend summer days. I mean, it's a marvelous way to move people. I think it's been a real solution. I would not I would not introduce any changes to 3 or 33 because they seem to me to be working quite well. 36, and I guess that's really the crux of tonight's discussion, is would we move people? Would we be solving problems? And is it worth 150,000? Well, Julie, you say it's an experiment, and I get that. If we could really bring people in, that would be, in the summer, I guess my inclination is to continue to try it just for 5 months rather than make it a year-round operation. I think maybe you've got some comments. Let's hear them.
I just wanted to say, with respect to the $5 amount, that number would go down if we're successful and we're moving a lot more people. It's not going to be $5 per person. So the other thing is, even though the buses in the summer are utilized and packed full, there's still I think we would all agree, an unacceptable amount of congestion downtown. At least that's what most of the residents are screaming at us about. So anything we can do in addition to what's already being done to reduce the intensity during the summer, I think is worthwhile as well.
Okay, thank you. Denise, please.
Just point of clarification. If we did 15 minutes, let's say 15-minute increments on 36, that would be minimum of 3 buses. Is that correct? About just a guesstimate. Is that a guess? I know you'd have to go back and look at it. But
Well, right now it operates at 20-minute frequency, so 15.
But that's if you go all the way to the cog. If 36 goes all the way through the route that they're talking about, all the way to the cog and back around, you were saying about 40, maybe 50 minutes.
Kind of a ballpark.
So
yes.
3 buses would get you 15 minutes around there.
Approximately.
And that's
yes.
about $1 million. Because it's 350 a bus for 36. Is that correct?
You would basically, so the revenue, referring to revenue service hours, so essentially it would triple up the revenue service.
So
hours
it'd be
'cause the
about $1
three
million
buses.
bucks
Yeah,
for a year. Okay, to do 36 if we did all the way the cog and kept it at 15-minute increments.
approximately.
Okay, so about $1 million to do that.
Is
Okay.
that's year round, is I
Yeah,
assume what you're
that's
talking about?
36 year round going and with 3 buses for 15-minute increments, and that's the quickest you could probably do, right? It would be about $1 million. Okay,
Yeah, go ahead, John.
So if you took Denise's idea, but we took my idea of only using 33, like the mayor says, on its current route, but basically it kind of beefs up getting people from downtown and Hiawatha to the Cog Railway seasonally. What's the credit for if we only ran that 6 months of the year in terms of in Denise's analysis? And then my comment would be, instead of doing 15 minutes, do 20 minutes, which isn't quite as much as her multiplier. And so that would seem like to me, we're getting more back, something into the ballpark. I think what we're missing here in all these things here is that if the Dillon comes online, I guess I'm just asking everybody in this room, what are our plans for basically transiting those people? Is that only seasonal kind of thing? And do we think that that the current 36, as it's currently right now, it currently has what, 30-minute headways?
20-minute.
20-minute headways, 36 says that 36, given its current route configuration, would be enough to kind of pick up, the demand in the summertime. The thing that I find less attractive about that is we keep talking about how the East End needs to be sort of included, okay, in the entire economic and transit picture of Manitou year round. And it seems like these plans here, shall we say, cuts the URA off and just makes it into a seasonal component.
Thank you. Judith?
Thank you, Mayor. So I live on the east end of town. And one of the things I want us to think about is the bigger picture. This actually came up with several people residents last night when we were talking about the trams. And that is, I believe that, and we can't monetize this, but I believe that we are losing revenue because we don't have adequate bus transportation from the outlying ends of town. Now, I know if we did the 36 shuttle to the COG, we wouldn't be going to Serpentine Roundabout. I realize that would maybe just be another 10 minutes, but I ride the 36 all, through its season, and it's fantastic. And when I do ride it, I come into town and I shop in town and I eat in town and I do all sorts of things in town. But when it's not running, the residents in my neighborhood say, you know what? We quite often cannot find parking. So we're just as likely to go out to dinner in Colorado Springs, where we can go to a restaurant where there's free parking. And so, I believe that happens a lot more often than not. I had a family reunion dinner and we tried to set it up at a local restaurant in Manitou. We had 20 people and we ended up having to bail on the restaurant and go to Colorado Springs because our family members that were driving in could not find parking. And finally, we had to leave the restaurant. Half the people were at the restaurant. It was a mess. And so I think that we have to think that, yes, $5 a head, but if we pick up more travelers, if we extend it to Columbia, we are servicing the URA. I do believe more people will come into Manitou and spend money here. I guess I have a question that I don't know if you can answer, but just ballpark how long it would take it for the 36, because right now we know it's about 20-25 minutes for its current route. If we were adding 10 minutes to go up to the cog, are we talking about a 30-minute, 35-minute turnaround? Is that fair to say? Or do you think it would be longer than that?
Really have to take a look at, because I mean, we keep talking about Columbia, but finding where the vehicle could actually turn around, because you can't just stop and go back the other way. So there'd have to be a turnaround there somewhere to come back the other way. Ballparking it, I mean, you're looking probably increasing that 30 to 40-minute frequency. That I mean, without digging into it, that's a ballpark figure.
The last thing I want to say is, I think that we need to be careful. We market ourselves as a health and wellness destination and a place where we want you to get out of your car and enjoy, what we have to offer. And I think that if we're going to cut off bus service, I think that that sends the wrong message. And I agree with Counselor Wolf that I think it's worthwhile for us to consider this a pilot and field test it and see what happens.
Other comments? Roy?
And I just want to let council know that, and we're still in the process of working on it, is Juan and I, months ago with the TMMP, I brought up the VIA system. And so Juan and I met today with Lone Tree, City of Lone Tree, because they use that system. And just so you can make a good decision tonight, what they do there is through an app or phone call, they'll go and pick you up. And so the computer system tells you where to go, where to pick up the next person, and it's like a ride share. So there's another way you can do it with virtual bus stops. So we could actually, the VIA would help us set up virtual bus stops throughout the whole city in the residential neighborhoods. And they would know from the app where to go to the corner of their street, wait for the bus, how long it will take. And the tram can come pick them up, and then it will go to the next destination. And they're having a lot of success in Lone Tree. So Juan and I plan on continuing looking at that to bring to council here early next year as we look at the way to do the tram for the residential use. So I do want to make sure you understand that tram, we're doing everything we can to find a way to support the residents.
Yeah, thanks, Roy. And I've read or heard about cities where they have something like that for, special population, seniors, disabled individuals and whatnot. So it provides kind of a safety net, but it's been in places, it's not as cheap as people just hopping on the bus, but it's cheaper than a taxi or an Uber. And it's reasonably cost effective for the municipality that's, or the agency that's providing that service. So it's relatively efficient, and it also kind of accommodates the needs of the client or the passenger. So I think that idea has some merit too. I guess I could continue to support the Route 36 in basically in the summer season, the 5-month season, with the idea that this year we're going to have, presumably we'll have the Dillon lot, at least for maybe part of the summer. I don't know if that's a pretty aggressive schedule, but I think that could temper the demand on the 36. I like the idea of continuing to use Hiawatha Gardens as a transportation hub, having all 3 routes come in there. So I guess my thought would be to not change the 36 from what we've got, just keep it for the 5-month period and see how it goes by as we bring in the Dillon parking lot. So I think that could have a significant effect. Sorry, Denise?
Mayor, I think tonight we got some great feedback, and I would like for, if it's okay with council, for the group to go back and really look at this and see what the numbers look like and what the routes would look like, and come back with another proposal, the financials, all of that in the very near future, so that we have a complete picture of what this looks like. Right now, we're kind of guessing on this and we're not sure about this. So if staff could take that and try to get back as soon as possible, we'll need to talk to Mountain Metro to see what that timeline is and try to come back. I think we got some great direction to go do some more research and then come back and do a presentation with more details, if that would work for council.
Okay, Thank you, Denise. Julie?
Thank you. I think that's a great idea. And I would hope one of the things that we could see that Mayor Graham mentioned, well, he mentioned just summer only, but I'd be curious to look at what would it cost us if we used the smaller bus, the cutaway for off-season on 36? Just for starters, since it's not used to being used very much. And then go back to the large 36 during our high demand season, May to September. And if we could look at breaking down the cost that way, it might help us put together the puzzle.
Okay. Thank you, Julie. Just go around the table here and actually, the one thing I would like to do, a little off the wall, but Commander Sabine from the police force is here. Commander, I didn't know if you had, I mean, you apparently have some interest in this
Mayor,
matter.
he's here for a different reason, not for that.
Oh, all right. Okay, thank you. I didn't, okay. I just thought if he had some input, I didn't want to, okay, great. Thanks. I didn't know. I just, okay, all right. I thought since you were here and if you were interested, it would be worth our giving you a chance to speak. Okay. All right. Thanks. Sorry to get off the rail. Let's go around. Natalie, how do you feel?
Great.
Okay. You want?
I'm,
more?
I'm, no.
Oh, good. I'm glad
No,
you're feeling better
I
this
also
week.
agree that I was thinking the same, things were getting complicated and I'm like, I'd love to see staff come back with the next step of the
The next
conversation.
iteration.
So,
Okay. Thank you. John? Okay. Nancy?
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm a huge supporter of public transportation. I think we need more of it, not less of it. And I'm very much looking forward to some more narrowing this down a bit more with more specificity because it is difficult to draw any conclusions based on the information we have now. And I do appreciate the feedback that has been given tonight. And I do appreciate Mountain Metro coming and presenting to us this evening.
Great. Thank you, Judith.
Yeah, I just want to, while we're gonna, and I do agree with Denise and the group that more discussion is needed. I just got a text from a resident. And the question is, how about canceling the 33 and doing the 36 from Columbia to the COG every 15 minutes, as Denise suggested? So just another food for thought to put in the mix. I want to make sure that we are starting to move away, and I believe we will with the trams, throwing tourist-centric solutions to resident-centric problems, right? Because the reason why we have the 36 shuttle in the high season is because of the tourists, right? We don't have that bus because of the residents, and we feel it over there. We feel really left out of the picture. In fact, I had a comment, I had someone in Manitou say, well, you know, where you live, it's not really Manitou. And sometimes we do feel that way. I'm a big fan of year round for the 36. I think we need to have, you know, really start figuring the future of the Dillon Motel as a parking lot. I believe it should be free to all residents. And I really want to reiterate, I think it's a great idea, the 31st Street to Hiawatha on the route number 3. I think that would increase that ridership as well. And I'm not opposed to serving the west end of town if we did do the 36 shuttle to the COG, if that was something that was doable. Perhaps having one of the trams serving the east end to the roundabout because there are businesses and people living over there as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I guess I would support taking a little bit deeper dive here. But again, I'll reiterate, I think 33, the incline bus has worked very, very well. I think that may be the highest capacity bus in the whole Mountain Metro system.
It does hit our highest
It is,
numbers.
right. And it moves people, and it's again, you know, if you want to see a success story, you know, any summer, typically the afternoon on the weekend in the summer, you can see those buses filling up, loading up with people. And if they were all driving around, we'd really be at our wits' end. So I think that's it's working well. I don't think I'd want to mess with that. 3 works well. And if you look at the ridership numbers, those are, you know, 3 and 33 get heavy use. It's that 33 that's in a sense underperforming. If we can do something to get that up, I think, you know, the 3 months the three heavy summer months, it's probably very helpful. So I would appreciate, a little more discussion on that. And certainly we appreciate you coming over and thinking this through. I mean, it's a vexing problem, congestion and traffic, but I mean, when you solve problems here, that's kind of like going to the Olympics. So it's, Eastern Colorado Springs shouldn't be quite as vexing, I hope. Great. Sorry, Natalie?
I just wanted to mention something too that hadn't come up yet that I just wanted to throw into the mix. And that was that another thing to consider is that, we can't, like at the Art Center, we can't pay as much as our neighboring communities can for employees. But if you could potentially live and work in Manitou without a vehicle, that can save your family $15,000 a year, $20,000 a year. And that could then make up for that lack of maybe monetary payment that we can potentially offer employees. And so I just think that's another thing to consider as we're moving forward with this.
Okay. Okay, good point. Thank you. If council, do we have anything else? I think we've pretty well discussed this. I think we've talked about a lot of ideas, so the direction is back to the drawing board, I guess. So, all right. Julie?
Something. I don't know if this is consensus or not, but it seems like we could save time if the buses don't go to Serpentine because those don't seem to be used, and I don't see any reason for that to change. So if our bus service stops at the roundabout at Ruxton, I think that would make more sense than adding the extra time to head further west. Just a suggestion.
Interesting. Yeah. Maybe what we should all do, golf council members, we should hop on the bus and ride each route and see, do the experience and do it, like in the morning when people are trying to get to work and when they're coming home and then middle of the day, that kind of thing. And to tell the truth, I haven't ridden anything but the incline bus in several years. So anyway.
Just warn you, Mayor, don't try the 36. It's not running right now.
Oh, right. Okay.
You'll be waiting for a bit.
Caught me on that one. We'll be okay. Great. Well, thank you very much. I would like to thank Mountain Metro for the work you've done on this and the partnership. I mean, Roy mentioned it as the meeting opened. It sounds like we've got the best working relationship that we've ever had, and I thought it was pretty good. So now it's better. Great. Thank you. Well, I think that was our only piece of business tonight. So if there's no objection, we'll call it a night.
I just wanted to quickly say that my senior Mountain Metro bus pass is the best deal in town. And I ride the number 3 and really appreciate that seniors get a discount. And so it's awesome. So thank you.
I'm looking forward to the day when I can get the senior rate. Yeah, just a reminder, we won't have a meeting the week of Christmas. So 2 weeks from tonight, we'll be out, but we will have a meeting next week and we'll have a lot of business and then we're off. Yeah, very busy meeting. Yeah. Oh yeah, right. Michelle's, she won't be off until 6. Yeah. Yeah. It's a bit of a hardship on her. We'll all be well prepared so we can get through it in a reasonable amount of time.